Welcome into Outkick the Show. I'm your fearless leader, Clay Travis. I hope wherever you may be across this great country or this great land, you are having a fantastic Thursday. You are ready for the return of college football and the NFL as we prepare to dive into the Philadelphia Eagles going on the road against the Green Bay Packers. But before we get there, and I'll give you my gambling picks in this game at the end of today's show, it's a really interesting story that I think is not getting as much play as I anticipated. The NFL's collective bargaining agreement is coming to a close here soon. The NFL would like to get it done early, potentially by the end of this year. Collective bargaining agreement, of course, is the relationship that governs the contractual interaction between the players and the owners. The players' union negotiates with it. Negotiates with the owners and Roger Goodell, and everybody puts together this entire bouquet of rights and agreements. I love this idea. I like this idea a lot. There is a suggestion that the NFL might be willing to give up the entirety of the preseason in exchange for a 17-game season. This is a great idea. If we had a 17-game season, we would have no 4-week preseason. And we would go right into the season and start and just add one game. This seems like a really good win for a lot of different people. Could potentially shorten the overall amount of time that the players have to spend in camp because they wouldn't be playing all of the 4 preseason games. They wouldn't risk injury in all of the preseason games. And the argument, which I think would be a good one, would be that on average, a player plays about a full game at least in the 4 preseason games. And so you turn that down, and in theory, you would make a lot more money in the new rights agreement if you had an extra game to sell. I also think they should expand the postseason, but I got an idea on what to do with that 17th game as well that I think is a really cool one. Follow me along here. Right now, the 16-game schedule is pretty straightforward. You get 8 home games, you get 8 road games. What if every different NFL team played one regional game in a stadium that otherwise didn't get to see an NFL game? I think this has really cool possibilities. Let's say, for instance, that you are in Knoxville, Tennessee, and you have Neyland Stadium. You could theoretically play the Panthers against the Titans in Knoxville and bring people from Carolina, people from Nashville as well, and play it in Neyland Stadium. I think that's a pretty cool idea. And I'm just using that because it's close to my geography here. But you could go to a lot of different neutral site stadiums. You could go to London easier. You could go to Mexico City easier. You could make a trip all over the United States. And let's say that you're in Iowa and you never get to watch an NFL game. How cool would it be if, say, the Vikings and the Chiefs came to Iowa and played in the University of Iowa or Iowa State's football stadium? I think about it for those kids and those adults who might live in neighborhoods and communities where you're never going to be able to go see an NFL game in person. How cool would it be if suddenly there was one in your backyard? Somebody just said Eagles, Steelers, and Happy Valley for Penn State. I think this could be a really cool setup. And so that way, because otherwise there's going to be a lot of discussion. I guess you could alternate it. Who gets 9 home games? Who gets 8? It alternates back and forth. I think that's a really cool idea. You could play some games in Toronto. You could go to Mexico City. You could go to London. It also allows the NFL to test potential expansion areas. And maybe if you're leaving behind an area and they don't have a team anymore, maybe you could play one game a year in Oakland, right? If you're the Raiders, you could go back to Oakland and play one game a year, neutral site there. Just an idea that I would have associated with this. Couple of other things that I think make a lot of sense associated with that. Expand the playoffs, right? Expand the playoffs. Add us at least one more wild card team per division, per conference. I think potentially 2. Expanding to 16 playoff teams instead of 12. Half of the NFL would get in the playoffs. I don't think that's a bad idea. I know right now you get a bye if you're the 1 and the 2 seed. Either only the 1 seed gets a bye or nobody gets a bye. Nobody gets a bye in any other sport in pro sports. So why not go ahead and expand the playoffs, give more teams a chance to get in. 1 would play 8, 2 would play 7, 3 would play 6, 4 would play 5 in the AFC and the NFC. I think both of those have a lot of potential, right? I think that would be a pretty cool setup. But I like this idea. I think people could work with this, eliminate the preseason, play a 17th regular season game. The other thing I would do is I would add a couple of bye weeks. I think it doesn't make sense that you play a 16-week season. If you want to give something back to the players and make them feel healthier, add 2 bye weeks. One bye week would, or at least one other bye week, and put that bye week right before everybody plays on Thursday. So instead of having to play a game on Sunday and then immediately turn around and playing a Thursday night game, why not add an extra bye week and have everybody get the opportunity to get off extra amounts of time so that the Thursday night game everybody's more rested for and you don't have to worry about injury. Doing that, if you added a bye week and added one regular season game, do you know when the NFL schedule would end then? On President's Day weekend. President's Day on Monday would then become a default national American holiday to celebrate football. How cool would it be if people started getting off President's Day on a regular basis and you turned the entirety of NFL, the Super Bowl, into a Sunday afternoon, evening extravaganza that then allows people to celebrate and they get the next day off. Mom, American Pie, and the NFL, baby. And that, to me, makes an awful lot of sense. So I think if the players and the owners could agree to that, it's something that everybody would agree with in general that I think would lead a lot of people to believe that's a really good move. All right, shifting gears. The New York Times just reported that the whistleblower, side note, am I the only person who every time you hear the phrase whistleblower thinks of the Flo Rida song, You Can Blow My Whistle, Baby? Or is that just me? I don't know. But the whistleblower worked at the CIA, all right? And he was the person who wrote this report, which has now been released and which I am going to predict it is going to immediately disappear. Just like the dossier did about Donald Trump peeing on the bed because Barack Obama stayed there with a bunch of hookers. Just like collusion with Russia. Just like everything surrounding the firing of the FBI director, Comey, all of this stuff. All of it is going to disappear because this is yet another example of the Democrats hating Donald Trump so much that they are willing to believe anything, that they suspend their credulity. I don't know if it's a gift or a curse, but Donald Trump seems to be able to provoke such hate that otherwise reasonable people lose their minds. And if you want to actually beat Donald Trump, here is what you need to do. You need to make the decision to focus on 2020. Simple, straightforward, without difficulty. All you have to do if you want to remove Donald Trump from office is beat him in a little over a year. That's it. All of this desperation makes me think that Democrats don't believe they're actually going to be able to get it done. Because if he's such an awful president and he's such an awful candidate, why in the world could you not just go ahead and beat him in 2020? Why do you need to have to keep buying into all of these pipe dreams? Just beat him in 2020. Put forward the best candidate, let the American people vote, and remove him from office, as virtually every president has been removed from office who has not been able to win a second term. I mean, it's really straightforward. And at this point, maybe I understand some of the angst early on, but at this point in time, why would you even attempt to remove somebody via impeachment in an election year? It's a whole huge charade. I think it helps Trump, but just focus on the election. It's going to be 2020 in like whatever it is, 90 days. In 90 days, it's actually an election year. It's crazy. Absolute insanity. And so I think this story, I'm very confident, is going to disappear just like the others did. Trump is not what the Democrats want him to be. He is not an evil genius hell-bent on destroying their way of life. That's what they want him to be. That's what the far left wing wants him to be. He's much more likely to be a relatively messy leader. right? He just stumbles from one controversy into another with no grand articulated plan for what he is attempting to do. He is a lot like somebody who had inherited a family business and continues to run it, and the business is pretty good, i.e. America, and the overall decision-making on day-to-day basis is not bad, but it's just a little bit messy. There's no grand strategic design here designed to destroy the country or anything else. It's just Donald Trump who's a little bit messy. It's like an analogy would be if you walked into a room and there had been a big spill on the ground, right? Would you presume that somebody had thrown that water on the ground intending for you to slip, hit your head, and die? Or would you think probably somebody was just messy here right before I came in? Right now, Democrats are like, oh, this is a clear attempt to make me slip, fall, hit my head, and kill me. I can't believe there's water on the ground. When the reality is, it's a 75-year-old dude walking around and he bumped a glass and knocked it off, and it was a paper cup, and he didn't hear it land, and there's water now there. And he's looking around like, what do you mean I tried to kill you? There's just water on the ground. This is what Trump is doing. I don't think he's a bad guy. I don't think he's particularly astute. I don't think most 75-year-old people in general are particularly astute. If anything, we have an age restriction on how old you have to be president, right? You have to be 35 years old. I wish we had an age restriction on how old you couldn't be, right? I don't know how it's justified that you have to be 35 years old. The idea was we want wisdom. We don't want somebody young to be able to do it. But a lot of companies require you to retire at like 67 years old. Why in the world would we not have, okay, you have to be president. You have to be on the day you're elected between the ages of 35 and 65. That seems totally reasonable to me. That's a big 30-year window when theoretically your faculties can still be doing a great job. 35 to 65 is a very reasonable window. That's 30 years worth of candidates that you can find. I don't know that we need potentially what we're going to end up with, which is Joe Biden going up against Donald Trump. I don't know how many 75-year-olds you know, but most 75-year-olds I know are not as efficient as I am at the age of 40. And I wouldn't anticipate that I would be as efficient at the age of 75 as I am at 40. I just think it makes a lot of sense. And people are like, oh, well, he misspoke. He's 70 freaking 5, roughly, Biden and Trump. Oh, he just talked for 3 hours and he didn't make a lot of sense. Have you never been to Thanksgiving? People are like, oh, I don't know. The president, did you see his press conference? He didn't make a lot of sense. Yeah, that's because he's 75. Have you never been to Thanksgiving before? If you sit and talk to most 75-year-olds, at the end of the conversation, you're like, you know, I think they said a lot of things that wasn't actually accurate. And that's them just talking about their family. They get kids' names wrong. They get years wrong. They get decades wrong sometime. And it's not a negative about them. It's just that's what happens when you're 75 years old. So I don't know who all these people who run around like, did you see Joe Biden misspeak today? Yeah, he's 75. I did. I saw him misspeak. Did you see what Donald Trump, he didn't make it? Yeah, he's 75. I mean, I don't know why people are surprised by this. I hope I make sense when I'm 75, but I bet I won't. So nothing's going to come of this. There's a lot of attention. I think the big winners here potentially could be MSNBC, CNN, and Fox. If Donald Trump gets impeached and they can put that thing on television, a lot of people will get worked up. A lot of people will get angry. But remember, I try to be completely middle of the road and not oversell you on the idea that there's ridiculousness going on. That's kind of what's going on right now. It's just a big charade. It's just a big show. Don't worry about it. I'm telling you right now. All right, let's go back to sports for a minute. Baker versus Rex Ryan. One of my issues with Baker Mayfield is he appears to have no sense of humor at all. Okay? He appears to have no ability to just laugh at himself. I don't know if it's because he's got to have this big chip on his shoulder all the time. I don't know if that's just his personality. But Rex Ryan said he's the most overrated quarterback in the NFL, in his opinion. All right, Rex Ryan is paid for his opinion. He said that. It got attention. Baker Mayfield got asked about it. Baker Mayfield had an opportunity to laugh this off. He has all day to think about his response. I'll give you two that I think would have actually been really funny. The first one He could have just said, when he got asked this question, Rex Ryan said, you're the most overrated quarterback in the NFL. Baker Mayfield could have said, yeah, man, I heard about that. You know what? My mom texted me, and she said she thought Rex Ryan was the most overrated NFL analyst in the entire country. Boom, you're out. It's funny. Your mom probably agrees that Rex Ryan is incorrect and that you're overrated. Boom, that response gets a lot of play, but most people laugh, right? Most people just flat out laugh. The other one, if he wants to take an actual dig at Rex Ryan, is he could easily say, yeah, I saw Rex Ryan said that. You know, I just hope one day I can play football as good as Mark Sanchez did and that his wife gets a tattoo of me in a Browns jersey. Boom. That's really funny, right? If you break it down, that is outstanding, right? You dismiss the story. If you're not aware, Rex Ryan's wife got a picture of in the jersey of Mark Sanchez in the Jets jersey. Boom. It's a funny line. You're done, all right? That is really simple. That's easy. The standard for quarterback humor is low, right? It's like the standard for principal humor. If a principal makes a joke, it doesn't have to actually be that funny. You have an entire day to think about your response. Instead, Baker Mayfield took a shot at Rex Ryan, and he behaved like I think a petulant child, right? I didn't think he behaved in a way that is befitting of most quarterbacks in the NFL. And this all ties together with the biggest issue with Baker Mayfield is he burns bright, right? There's a lot of intensity there. And there is plenty of time to be intense on the football field, but you don't need to carry yourself that way all the time. And you don't need to get drawn into every controversy out there. Somebody said he didn't have time to think about a response. He had a full day. He knows when he's going to go talk to the media. They brief him on what the media is likely to ask him. He had an entire day to sit around and pull a Costanza and try to play a jerk store line. This isn't remotely difficult. Having said that, I like the Ravens on the road. I like the Browns on the road against the Ravens. I think they've been oversold. +7 is too many. I'm not buying into Lamar Jackson because Lamar Jackson's 2 wins are over the Dolphins and over the Chargers. He wasn't very good against the Chiefs. He threw up a couple of Hail Marys. I think the Browns have a good chance to go into Baltimore and pull off the upset there. Okay, Jalen Ramsey. So far this week, Jalen Ramsey has said that he had the flu, that his back hurt, and that his neck hurt. All of these things. Now the Jags have announced that he's back home where I live in Nashville for the birth of his second child. This entire charade is ridiculous. I think that the Jags have misplayed this. Jalen Ramsey's under contract. If he's not going to play, you treat him like Melvin Gordon, who we'll get to in a minute. He's a great player, but if he's not going to show up and play for you, you fine him and you don't play him. And you can't allow him to just thumb his nose at the franchise like this. When you are under contract, you have an obligation to play. And the funny thing about these ridiculous stories is, if he really had the flu, would it make sense for him to travel home and be around his pregnant wife and his soon-to-be-born baby? If anything, if you have the flu and you have those germs, you want to stay far away as possible. So none of these stories make sense. They're completely made up. But the real loser here is the Jags and their owner, Khan, who has the opportunity to fine him and hold him accountable for not showing up to play. Baker Mayfield doesn't have to show up to play. Jalen Ramsey doesn't have to show up to play, but he's under contract. If he doesn't show up to play, he should be fined to the fullest extent of his contract. You can't set the precedent that a player can just walk out in the middle of the season and demand a trade because he gets upset about how he's treated on the sideline. It's a simple solution. Fine him, treat him like he's not in compliance with his contract, which he isn't, and actually go out and hold him accountable. So that's what I would do if I were the Jags. If you're going to trade him, then get it done. The trade deadline's not till October 29th. You have to play. You're going to get fined in the meantime. Speaking of getting fined in the meantime, Melvin Gordon with maybe the least efficient and effective holdout strategy of all time. He sits out for 3 games. His team goes 1-2. The only win with the Chargers is in overtime over the Colts. And then he makes the decision to suddenly show back up today at the Chargers camp. He has been fined and lost $2 million in the process. He gained absolutely nothing. Nothing at all in the holdout process. In fact, the Chargers could still franchise him next year if they desire to do so, meaning that he has gained absolutely nothing. This is one of the least efficient and effective holdouts of all time. He took less money. He paid the price of holding out by getting fined substantial sums of money. And when he comes back, his team is now 1-2, meaning he's playing for an inferior team. This is a ridiculous decision all around by that running back, by Melvin Gordon. All right, final segment. Final takeaway here. We got the Eagles and the Packers going on tonight. I like the Eagles on the road +4. I like the over here, but I got a third pick for you. I also like the Packers in the first half. If you look at what's happened so far with the Packers, they've come out offensively and scored a lot of points and gotten up early. Packers in the first half is a great play. They're -125 right now, but I like the Eagles for the game, and I like the Eagles +4 to eventually end up covering. I think this is a much bigger game for the Eagles. They can't fall to 1-3. They can't be 3 full games back, which they would be if the Cowboys go on the road and beat the Saints. This is a no-brainer to me that this is a must-win game for the Eagles. They're getting healthy. Alshon Jeffrey is back. I think he will play well. My guy, Cousin Sal, is going to be up at Lambeau Field trying to make the Lambeau leap. He is going to be a part of the Thursday night spectacle on Fox. If you're going to be watching this game tonight, watch him. And if you're watching this right now, I hope you will also watch me on Lock It In, which will be on at 4:30 Eastern, 3:30 Central, 2:30 Mountain, 1:30 Pacific. Love all of you. My name is Clay Travis. This has been Outkick the Show. If you like me, share it. If you hate me, share it too. Basically, tell everybody you know all about me. My name is Clay Travis. This has been Outkick the Show. DBAP, unless you need to SBAP. Kisses. See y'all. Bye.